Hi there BookTube, it's Emma from Emma's Bookish Lifestyle, and today is just a video to let you know what my current TBRs are. I've been quite busy at work, but I'm still enjoying my reading at night. In regards to TBRs and a little bit about myself, I don't really follow a set TBR. What I do is I try and limit myself to a selection of books and try and stick to those as much as I can. Unfortunately, I don't get as much free time as I would like to read, so a lot of the books that I do read can take me a few weeks, so apologies in advance if you see my TBRs and they aren't as frequent as maybe some of the other readers. I'm lucky if I can read a sort of 500-page novel in a week, but it just really does depend on the amount of time that I can put to one side. At the moment, with the winter nights and everything else, that's not as difficult as you might think, but obviously there's family things going on at the moment and things to do with the Christmas season, as you can see with my Christmas tree in the background. This is my first few videos on BookTube, so I haven't taken part in the Christmas Vlogmas, but I am thoroughly enjoying everybody's videos, and can't wait to continue watching them right the way through. So the first book that I wanted to discuss is obviously on my TBR at the moment. I'm 200 pages in, it's everywhere on BookTube, and it's The Little Book of Hugo. Now, I know that Lauren and the Books and Mercy's Bookish Musings have both mentioned similar type books to this, if not the same book, and they've obviously mentioned on their recent first podcast how much that's their kind of way of life and how they live. It's very much how I do too. I'm very much a queen of cosy, so I've always been snuggly outfits, furry blankets, thick socks, curling up on a rainy day with a really good book, hot drink, a few snacks, chilling out, obviously having friends and family around. I love recently obviously moving into my own place after my divorce. I've regained my love for entertaining, so very much cooking for my mum and dad, who've had their kitchen ripped out and replaced with the new one, which is lucky for them but also lovely for me because it means I've been able to pay it forward a little bit and embrace the Hugo lifestyle by entertaining them and cooking them some fantastic meals that are new recipes as well. So really enjoying that book. That's a lifestyle book, but to me it's still a 5-star read, and when I complete that it will be going on to a 5-star read. There is one book that I don't have to hand at the moment because I've given to a friend of mine that I unfortunately did not finish when I started it, and that is How Much the Heart Can Hold short stories. Now, I was really thankful to the publisher who sent that to me through Bookbridger. Unfortunately, the premise was fantastic, but to me it just wasn't my kind of book. There are probably many of you out there that will love it, and so I'm not going to rule it out for other people, but it just really wasn't my kind of thing. I'm trying to expand my boundaries a bit with some of my reading, and sometimes, you know, by doing that you are going to DNF a book. But the premise of this book was basically 7 short stories based on different Greek terminologies for the word of love. Now, it's not your kind of saccharine version of love, it's more the kind of different types of love. So unrequited love, enduring love, love for oneself, love for one's family, things like that. So the first story, unfortunately for me, kind of almost killed the book dead before it even started. I really didn't enjoy the story at all. I hoped it would be a grower. I hoped that when I walked away from it and thought about it a bit more, I would magically come across something a bit more substantive to it than what there was. Unfortunately, there wasn't. Apologies for the camera wobble. My chihuahua has suddenly decided he's going to jump on my legs as I'm recording. And I hoped it would, I don't know, make me want to feel more invested in this as a story. Unfortunately, it didn't. All it did is make me feel nothing at all, no investment, no nothing in the characters, and generally it felt a little bit two-dimensional to me. I thought they were trying to put an element of magical realism in there. I'm not a big owner of fully understanding or appreciating magical realism yet, and I'll be honest and hold my hands up to that. There are probably more adept people than me in that, but unfortunately, if there was a degree of magical realism in it, that particular element of it kind of just turned me cold. The second story I did go on to, I thought I'd give it a good sort of three stories and see how I get on. That was based around enduring love, and again, I got to the end of that story and I was so angry. At this point, I very nearly did DNF it. I felt like throwing it across the room. Really didn't like the characters, like serious issues with the characters. Seemed very unrelatable, very insular, very selfish and lacking in any kind of respect for anyone, let alone having an enduring love. And I know, again, I repeat, these stories are not love stories, so they shouldn't be sweet and saccharine and happy ever afters and happy endings. But I just got nothing from the characters. And, you know, the writing on both story 1 and story 2 were very good. And as I say, maybe I'm missing something, but I struggled with those first 2 stories. So I skipped to number 3 and thought, right, okay, at the end of this one, if this doesn't work out, then that's my lot. And it kind of was a semi-saver. It felt very of the moment. It felt very appropriate. The subject matter was quite valid. I thought it was quite an important subject that it touched on, and also really felt that I liked the characters. Not necessarily because I liked them, that's the wrong word, but I could relate to the characters and they were more emotive to me and more human and less artificial. And from that point I then tried the next story and just decided not to finish it. The only other story in that book that I did read was the one from Caris Bray. Part of the reason for that is I've seen a lot of Caris Bray on BookTube and I'm very intrigued by her. I've wanted to start reading some of her material. And I read her short story in that book. And if everything else is like that short story in that book, I cannot wait to get my hands on it. It was a really, really well written, beautiful characters, slow paced, but I don't mind that. Pacing's not an issue to me. But it was a real kind of family tale, and it was very realistic and it was very immersive, and you felt like you were almost like that ghost person hanging over them, you know, watching the events taking place. So, I mean, that's my opinion, as I say. I'm sure that will come up with other booktubers and they might see a different side to it, and I appreciate that everybody's opinion is different, so by all means check it out. That was, as I say, that particular book was given to me through the publishers at via Bookbridger, and I really, really thank them very much for the opportunity to read it. That one just wasn't for me. So the next book that I'm reading at the moment is Gillian Macmillan, The Perfect Girl. Now, this was a giveaway book via Goodreads. Now, I'm about as lucky as, I don't know, there is no unluckier person in life, I don't think, sometimes. So to be given that book, I felt very honoured and very blessed. And it is a fantastic family-based thriller. At the moment, this is the story of a girl called Zoe Macy, who is involved in an incident very early on in her life, which has ended up and resulted in her having to spend a period of time in prison. When she comes out of prison, she tries to resume her family life with her mum and her stepfather, stepbrother, and newly born stepsister Grace. And her mum sort of very early on refers to it, and she continues to refer to it as the second chance family, which is a bit ironic, I think. But so far, again, I'm 150 pages in, thoroughly enjoying it, can't wait to pick it up, always trying to find a moment to pick it up. I think, again, that's about 500 pages, so I'm hoping to get to it tomorrow for a large proportion, although I do need some more baubles for my very bare tree. But I'm planning on tomorrow afternoon curling up with a nice hot chocolate and that book and the little book of Hygge and trying to make a vast chunk through both of those. So the other book that I've graphic novels that I've been reading during my lunch hour have been I Hate Fairyland Volume 2 by Skottie Young. Now, that only came out on the 7th of December. Anybody who loved I Hate Fairyland Volume 1 will absolutely love this. I completely just sat down and read it in one sitting in my lunch hour. It was fantastic. It had me giggling. I was reading it on Comixology on my desktop computer while I ate my lunch, and people were asking me why I was giggling. There were some very good homages to Game of Thrones, and also there was kind of a Scooby-Doo / Back to the Future kind of element in one of the stories as well, which was fantastic. There was also a new addition to the story, a new character who looks set to be even more involved in future stories in Volume 3, and his name is Duncan. Look out for him, he's going to be fantastic. It's just a brilliant book, graphic novel, comic, whatever you want to call it, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's one of the ones that I've been reading in my lunch hour. And lastly, there's one other book. And I'm not usually a multi-book reader, but I appear to have started that way of late. I think it's partially because there are so many different types of genre of book that I'm reading that I can read them at the same time. And also partially, during my married life, I didn't get the chance to read so much. And now I've regained my love of reading, I don't kind of want to lose it anytime soon, so I'm kind of making up a little bit for lost time. So the next book, and the last book, as I say, is Ralph Ellison's The Invisible Man. Now, Simon from Savage Reads was going to do a read-along in November. That read-along's now taking place in February. This book is 560 pages. And the likelihood of me finishing this before February it depends really on what else I've got that I'm reading at the moment. As you can see, I've got some quirky little tabs in here. These are the Finger It tabs, and these came thanks to Eleanor from Eleanor Reads in one of her buddy boxes. I believe it might have been the November buddy box, which was The Blue Door. Fantastic non-fiction if you like that kind of thing. This was based around the kind of Tenko era of prisoner of war camps containing women and children. But this, going back to Ralph Ellison, is written already amazingly well. I'm only 60 pages in. I've already got 3 emotive tabs on here, and I will be carrying on with that. But as I say, as you will see from future videos, there's some other things on the pipeline, so it may well be come February when the discussion happens with Simon from Savage Reads, I will partake in that because I'll still be reading it. It's something I don't want to rush. I think it's a very important subject. I think the writing so far has been beautiful, very, very emotion triggering, and I do enjoy that in a book sometimes. So that's basically where I'm at the moment with my current TBR. I will be reading more over the Christmas months and hope to be posting some more videos. So if you've got any questions, comments, recommendations, please leave in the doobly-doo down below. I hope you're all well. I hope you're enjoying all the Christmas vlogmases like I am. And I'll speak to you soon. Take care, BookTube. Happy reading.